Hello, tailoring talkers, and welcome to the Tailoring Talk Show with your host, Roberto Revilla, bespoke tailor and owner of Roberto Revilla London Suit and Shirt Makers. It's the podcast where I take you on a journey around the globe. We'll either be talking tailoring or tailoring the talk. We'll meet a host of amazing human beings, creators, self-starters, performers and more to learn about their journeys and lessons they've learned. They share their top tips and life hacks to guide you on the path to success. Please support my show by subscribing, and it helps so much if you take a few seconds to rate and review. We are joined today by the host of the Winner's Paradigm podcast, whose mission it is to help people recalibrate their mindset to achieve their goals. He's a Marine Corps veteran and founder with a passion for learning about why winners continue to win day after day, taking those lessons and helping people to flip the script and start achieving their dreams and their goals. Tailoring talkers, please join me in welcoming Alundas Havens to the Tailoring Talk Show. Alundas, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Roberto, for letting me come on your show, brother.
You're welcome. Did I pronounce your name correctly, or did I just completely butcher that?
You pronounced my first name perfectly. So Alundas, and then last name's Havens.
It is Havens.
You flipped it. Normally people mess up on my first name, and then last name they'll say it right for some reason every time. So
yeah, you
awesome.
know, it's that whole kind of Latino British heritage coming across there with a bit of Asian mixed in as well. And my brain just kind of flipped to it. So I got Alundas, you know, as we do. And then I was going to say Havens. And in my mind, I thought, that sounds really British if I pronounce it Havens. And that's why I flipped it in that microsecond to Havens. And then I completely balled it up. So I really apologize.
No. I love that. And I love you explaining it as well, because it definitely gives perfect context, you know, for people to understand.
Oh, yeah, you get a lot of that with me. I will explain the inner workings of my stupid brain. So, no, thank you very much for taking time to come on the show. So you are based where?
So I'm originally, I'm based out, or excuse me, right now, based out an hour north of San Diego, California, in Murrieta. So a little bit of how I got here was in the Marine Corps in San Diego for 4 years. My wife, so originally we're from Fresno, California. We grew up together, good friends, but never really anything serious till when I got to the Marine Corps. For me, my early childhood kind of just influenced me, even when I got into my, adolescent years, teenage, and whatever. Big drinkers, dad row machismo. Bless you.
Bless you.
And I got the little one playing here, so I'll tell you guys a little bit about that. But
dude, I've got two cats either side of the display that you can't see right now, but don't be surprised if they jump across. And then I got two dogs on the bed behind me. So it's your house, my house, mi casa, su casa, todo es loco.
Brother, I feel you. So with the little one, when she was like 3 months, so 3 months to like 9 months, it was just all her. And it was giving her originally last year in April, ended up quitting my job. I was helping other veterans with their claims. So really just getting money that they deserve from the government for all their physical ailments. And, it was fulfilling, but it was a lot of work, working 60 to 80 hours. So we had a nanny at the time, nanny moves, and I'm making sales calls, holding the daughter. So that's where it started for me. But 3 to 9 months, she wanted to do her own thing. And then after that, it's always where dad's at. So every podcast recording right here, throwing the mic off, and just going crazy all the time. So it's funny. It's I'm always saying that is hey, my goal is to be the best dad and husband I can be. Why? Because like I said, I had the parents who were drinkers. They were physical, had a racist stepdad in the mix. So he just would say some comments sometimes. Or like I said last time, I'm half Mexican, or 75% Mexican, 25% Black. So I grew up with all the Mexican side. I don't speak Spanish. So that is another thing. And then I didn't grow up with my Black side. So it was difficult for me when I was trying to learn about culture, expressing myself. My stepdad would say that's ghetto. And I'm like, man, I just want to grow my hair out. It's not that I want to look a certain way. I just want to express myself and grow my hair out just as anybody else would. So got kicked out of my house with my stepdad for him saying these beliefs one day. And then got in the military and just really started repeating the same things. You know, my parents had people coming in and out all the time, and me seeing that, thinking that that's okay, and then replicating it in my life. I was a big drinker because it was the traumatic events that happened, you know, in childhood, when I got in the military, to where it was, hey, you know, that was my identity, was drinking, and then really ruining myself, my life, my marriage, looking around and being like, hey, you know, I'm doing all these things that don't align to me. So that's where my goal is. Talking to man and really saying, hey, you know, we can recalibrate our mindset. It just gets us to put work in. We got to be vulnerable. So for me, I talk about that. I talk about, you know, oh yeah, my dad's real machismo and he's the badass that gets everything done. And for me, I was never that guy. You know, I was always working my butt off, and that's why everybody loved me. Is I would always prove like, oh, I'm going to keep doing it. But it was from a point of proving myself versus saying like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I bring to the table. This is why I work so hard. So for me, week before my daughter was born, started that podcast, The Winner's Paradigm, and just started jumping into those things to help other men, because I felt like that's something for me I kept struggling with. But even as I make growth, you know, start doing a little better, it's still going back to those roots that I was hurt on.
Yeah, it's you know, it's coping mechanisms as well, because wow, I mean, you tough upbringing, that environment. I'm guessing that your stepfather, you know, he wasn't the sort of person that was lifting you up at all. He was probably always, whether physically or verbally, kicking you down. And you have two choices to make, right? You either say, this is my lot, this is who I am, this is what I was born into, this is the hand that I was dealt, right? Or you basically decide to change your stars. And we can do that. I mean, again, you know, might not quite as bad as you, but I didn't have it easy growing up. There was abuse, disciplinarian parents, all the rest of it. But, you know, I just, when I was younger, I held on to the goal, I guess you could call it, that I was one day going to get out and then I was going to do better than them. But I know a lot of kids that I grew up with who, I mean, you know, to be honest, there's a number of them that aren't actually alive anymore. But, you know, we have this joke with the surviving members of my school that you either ended up in prison or you ended up dead. So here we are today. But then I'm quite interested in how your experience in the Marines also added to that as well, because that's a very stressful environment. And, you know, I guess guys going through that, soldiers, veterans, maybe don't get quite the help and support that they need, either as they're going through it or afterwards. So how has that also just added to the layers of your experience and understanding of what guys can be going through when it comes to mental health and, you know, maybe not being confident enough to go chasing after what they really, really want in life?
Oh, that's really good. I'm going to attack it from a different angle today. The reason why is just because our perspective changed. So I'll say for me, it allows you to realize your capabilities. And so, like, for instance, if there's a goal or objective that needs to get done, they're like, I don't care. This is happening this day. This is happening, or you're not going home. And that's how it is. So when it goes to goal setting, that's the way we process it. It's like, oh, I can do anything. I can keep pushing. But then it goes to a point of achievement and you not understanding, you know, kind of where you're at, but always trying to keep going further and further and further. So you know that you can do so much, but at the same time, even the going to somebody for help is very difficult to do, because they're going to be like, they could either help you or they can say the tough thing as well. Hey, figure it out. You're going to do it. That's how I learned. And then you start falling into those tracks. So for me, it was really realizing those things. But even, you know, and that's why I talk about the achievement part of becoming my own boss at 19, starting my own business, which was my unit in the military, and running the operations and doing all these things that I wasn't good at, but I was failing so much that I got good at, and getting there. But then when I looked at my life, I'm repeating these generational patterns. I'm drinking a lot. I'm not being myself. I'm not really opening up. I'm not helping other people. I'm just kind of going through the motions and really hating it because it didn't align with me. But I also tore all the cartilage in my right knee. So I was going through a lot mentally as well because I'm on my A game. I'm the best. Number one, going to get promoted, right? I tear all the cartilage in my knee. All of a sudden, I'm not good anymore. They're jumping on me. They're like really mad about my weight because I've always been bulky and lifting weights and big guy. And now they're giving me a problem about it, even though I'm within standard. So it was something for me where I was processing all this information and it was like, yeah, you can achieve on this level, but you're not going to be happy about the results you have in your life if you're not working on them. So that's where it really started. And then even getting out the military, realized pretty quick is if you're not here, you've worked on yourself, you're able to control your anger issues that I don't mean to be reactive. It's just a way that it kept me alive, whether it was the external environment or at home. So I act like that, head on a swivel, and I'm going to get jumpy sometimes. And it's like, if I can't figure that out, how do I be able to go over here in this good business conference or go meet these people if I'm going to be getting offended when someone makes a bad joke and now I'm going to lose, my character of who I am and revert back to how I used to be, to where people can pick that up and be like, oh, this guy's not a changed man, versus realizing like, hey, yeah, I do get reactive and this is what I do. So I don't act that way for this time because that could happen to you. So I like tapping on those elements of really showing people like, hey, just be appreciative, have that gratitude, and understand, hey, you went through all these things to become who you are. A lot of times we don't do that. We don't give ourselves grace on what we've already done because we think about the next thing we are doing or what we are going to do.
Yeah, no, exactly. And we also don't take the time enough to appreciate, when things are going well and when good things do happen. Just to be gracious in the moment and appreciative in the moment as well, because that can be quite powerful. Because if you don't allow yourself to experience those good feelings, then I guess you can't. You kind of miss the opportunity to then do it again. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but it is something that you talk about, which is accumulating wins, which is so important. And that's where the sport analogies come in, because at the moment, so I support Arsenal in terms of soccer over here. And Mikel Arteta, young manager, used to play for us back in the day, went away, came back as a coach. And he's doing amazing things. We're top of the league. He's got a very, very young group of players, and they are just doing amazing things. It's not just that they're winning, it's the way that they're doing it. But you can see also that the accumulation, because they've played 20 games in the league so far this season, they've only lost once, and that was early on. So they've just been back to back the last few months. And you can see the importance there of accumulating wins in sport. When did you start to kind of make that connection and then sort of start to delve into, the patterns and so on of professional athletes and pro teams, and then start to kind of take those concepts so that you could apply them in the way that you help people on a day-to-day basis?
I love that. So for me, I'll say the one who started for me was Kobe Bryant. I just loved his philosophy and that's how I work, is I would work from that place of no one's going to work more than me, even though I felt like my body couldn't hang into it or whatever it is. I'm always pushing myself. So I was learning from that effort of him saying that, like that mama mentality, we have to have that edge. We have to figure out, hey, what's us in our zone? Like just be us. Cause a lot of times we get in fear of, like for me, I had to restart my business twice, and it was, I can be in fear and I can be like, oh, I can't do this, or I can just go into it and be like, hey, this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm going to do. And I even had those thoughts, I was talking to one of my colleagues and he said, hey man, like, this doesn't sound like you. And I was just like, man, I've just wasted a lot of money, trying to get this business going. I poured my heart and soul out. And he goes, are you done? And I'm like, no way I'm done. And he's like, there's your answer. And I was like, oh, so it just goes into us on what's important to us. So if you look at the professional athletes, we can mirror that, because a lot of times that's what we look up to, and we look at these things. And even, World Cup, for instance, that was pretty awesome this year, because there was a lot of upsets, and then Argentina finally pulled it through, and that was something they haven't done in a while. So you kind of have to be able to hit the adversity. And I seen a quote the other day, and it was talking about a man will change when the fear of the current reality is greater than the fear of change. And I was like, man, that speaks volume, because that's what happens to us a lot of times. It's like we don't do something for that. So for me, I'm drinking a gallon of whiskey, partying all the time. Me and my wife are getting in arguments over just nothing. Now looking back at it, it's like, why was I starting something just to be right? But because bigger picture, it's like, yeah, you win this little battle, but then you still look like a jerk, So anyway,
well, you end up. I say, you win these little battles, but overall you end up losing the war. And war is not how you want to describe your relationships, whether it's a friendship, your marriage, your relationship with your kids. War is definitely. Oh my God! Hi. She didn't look very happy.
She wanted to make an appearance. Give her TV time, and she did not want TV time.
Yeah, it was supposed to be nap time, and she wants to come on camera.
Exactly.
Oh. I can see your world right there.
You're good. I just felt something under the desk. I was like, what's grabbing my feet? And then I looked, there's
I'll try and find like the Gremlins soundtrack or something for that part of the video.
All right, we're good.
Awesome. So I was trying to think where we were. So I was talking about not likening marriages, relationships, etc. to war, but to use that crude example, that there's no point. You might win a couple battles, but in the end you'll lose. Or the other one that I coined the other day in front of someone was, I said to them, short-term gain for long-term pain.
Ooh, that's really good.
You like that one? It was a builder I was talking to, because they were trying to rush a job and so on. And I said to them, listen, all you're doing is just creating more angst for yourself because you keep getting it wrong. It's short-term gain for long-term pain. That was it. Yeah. And they looked at me and they didn't know what to say. They were like, oh my God, that sounds really profound. Who said that? I said, I did. I just said it. Anyway, sorry.
That's a good one, brother.
So moving on, well, because then it's kind of developing those kind of, I don't even want to call them coping mechanisms, because it's a lot more than that. That sounds so trivial. But it's also about the people you have around them, because you touched on something there as well, that you did have someone or people around you who you were kind of almost using as a mirror, whether intentionally on your part or whether it's something they were doing intentionally on their part to try and keep you on this track that you are now on to improving all areas of your life. And you said that someone said, hey brother, that doesn't sound like you. And I imagine that's where the next component comes in, which is almost curating the people that you have around in your life and who you hang out with. Because I was in conversation with someone recently, and he said that you are the average of the people that you spend the most time with.
I love that. So like I was saying, for me, it was just realizing who I was surrounding myself with and what I was trying to accomplish wasn't it. So it started when I first got out the military, went into home improvement sales, and realized that these guys are veterans at selling, but it just didn't align to me, doing the old school hard selling and acting that certain way versus us having a conversation. And then I can talk to you about the value, what your goals are. More importantly, see what you're looking for versus me just trying to shove something down that doesn't serve you. So really just cater to you. So it was jumping in those positions. I went to a mortgage brokerage. I'm 22 years old. The difference is me and the wife had 2 miscarriages then. And then we were working on getting a house, we're putting everything together, and I'm at a different point. Yes, age-wise, we're the same, but I've been away from my family for 4.5 years. I'm working on my own thing. We have our own place. Pretty much everything we have, we bought, like financially sufficient. And these guys are like comparing me to them or talking about luxury things. And, oh, they live with their parents, but they just got a new Mercedes. Why don't I have a Mercedes? I'm not cool. And I'm like, hey, man, I got my own things. So it was just realizing like, hey, you got to figure out what aligns to you. And even, when you do find that good group, like for me, I had a business partner that was amazing, but what they believe no longer served me because I'm letting go of a lot of things. I'm working on that inner work myself. And I realized that a lot of things are projections, or they say that they don't like a certain type of people, but they act a certain way, or maybe they're still provoking people. And it's just like, hey, we don't need to do that. Like, that's something that we learn, definitely with the people we hang out with, is like, if they're leaning one way and talk about something that they feel strongly on, and we agree or don't agree, like eventually it could eat away more and more into whether we want to believe that or not. And I'm like, for me, I realized like I was doing the same thing, talking about, accepting everyone, and then being like, hey, if you're these people who are not doing this, you're the problem. Hey, why do we have to do that? Why can't we just talk about encouraging all people? But it goes back to, whoever that network is, whoever you're talking to. I'm huge on that because I've even been, with the people that led me down the wrong paths and people who led me down the good paths, but then realized that, hey, we're no longer aligning at that same level. Maybe they're right now, we're both focused on family more importantly, and then business comes, or family now and they're focused on traveling. Well, I'm not traveling right now because we're focusing on, building. So then it kind of allows you to be able to see, okay, maybe I shouldn't be over there if, I'm trying to do this.
Yeah. Was the podcast, The Winner's Paradigm, was that your kind of first step on the entrepreneur route? So was that the first thing you did? And we're going to get on to what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah. So Winner's Paradigm podcast was the first thing. And it started with me. It was just me talking about, past struggles, drinking, relationship problems, and just all the things that molded me into me. And then it went into me being able to work for someone, build up, start a business with them. Unfortunately, it didn't go. So I went solo on my own and figured out, hey, what do I have to do to be able to make this happen? Really start leveraging myself and working at it. So the Winner's Paradigm allowed me to be able to do that inner work and then continually stick to that. So it was funny as I made a second podcast and then merged it back into the Winner's Paradigm, because I was like, essentially, if we're talking about business, like we're still talking about stacking wins, regardless if it's just talking about business and having a
100%
conversation. It's just I wanted to start doing that because the problem is it would be an entrepreneur, and instead we're talking about life, brother. We're not talking about business and sales and marketing and how to talk to someone. Me and you were just talking about life and how to be grateful or whatever it is. So that was kind of for me therapeutic, is I got to get the best of both worlds. I got to work on the business, take care of my daughter during the day while I do this. So definitely allowed me a better perspective just to be more grateful and soak in, what I'm doing, who I am, why I work so hard.
Yeah. Take me through the Winner's Paradigm, because it sounds like such a cool concept. Absolutely. But I'm gonna, the reason I can't, because I've got such a big mouth and I talk so much. When my wife listens to this, and this will be like episode 90 or something like that. She's only at about 45, so in about 6 months' time, when she gets to this, she'll be shaking her head like vigorously, like, yeah, he does talk a lot. Because in my own head, I've got an idea of what it is, but obviously our listeners don't. So take me through the. You can start, and feel free to start with part one of the Winner's Paradigm is learning to shut your mouth, because you got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Anyway, sorry. Over to you.
I'm laughing because my wife, I caught my wife listening to the podcast later on too. So when it first started, she's like, I'm not going to listen to it. She did. And then it was like episode 40. She's like on the 20s. And I'm like, oh, you're barely on the 20s? And she's like, yeah, I listened to it little by little. I was laughing because I was like, I don't like hearing myself talk a lot too. So I did the same.
She fell behind recently, right? So I noticed that she wasn't commenting because she listened to an episode and she's like, oh, that guy you had on, that Alundas Havens, he was really interesting and his story was great. There was none of that for like 2 weeks. And I said to her, you haven't been commenting on my podcast. Like, have you stopped listening? And she said, yeah. She said, I'm pissed at you. for something that you did. And so I don't want to listen to you anymore. I don't want to hear your voice. So I stopped listening. So yeah, so she stopped listening. I think I have apologized for whatever it is that I did. But yeah, anyway, sorry. So honey, if you are listening to this, I'm really sorry, and I love you very much. And at the end of the day, you're the one that's missing out by not. Anyway, sorry. Right, I'm going to shut up now. Over to you.
Man, I love you, brother. But exactly. So we're talking about the winner's thread.
Right, let's be serious. Okay, ready?
Yeah, so
Alundas, the winner's paradigm. Take us through it.
So first step, what you have to do is you really have to look at yourself and what aligns to you. So it goes into core values. Why talk about core values so much? Because I've failed at it. I've said these are my core values, not lived by it, made bad decisions, let alcohol get out of hand. So you got to be able to look at it, what it is for you. So for me, it was making it an action plan. First one I have is true to self. So I really have to make sure like whatever I'm doing resonates with me and look at that behavioral standpoint. Because like I said, I was projecting on people. For instance, for me, it wasn't that I was projecting, to be negative. I was projecting talking about, hey, why is it that certain people target this type of people and say, hey, let's get mad at entrepreneurs who are ineffective and inactive versus being the encouraging factor of that. Well, I was saying that, kind of poking the bear at those people, even though, that's not what my angle was. My angle was just kind of talking about, hey, let's help the people who are inactive, but I'm not talking about the people being inactive. I'm talking about the other person. So then it makes me look bad and really assessing that. So
yeah,
go to your core values and figure out what it is. So for me, it was true to self. Then I have to be transparent and accountable, because in order to be transparent with somebody, I have to be able to acknowledge my shit as well and say, hey, this is where I failed as a man. This is what I've done. This is why I stress core values, because I lived a life where I didn't use core values or even got in those, character building moments and failed because I just made a dumb decision where it's like I easily could have been like, nah, man, whatever it is, walked away. But for some reason, did some dumb shit. So just really looking at yourself that way. For me, it went into learning and application as well, because I like to speed read through these books or watch these videos or do these courses and then not even soak in any of the information. So really figuring out, hey, if I'm going to take my time to invest into something, watch this course. So for me, started a video editing company, and it was, hey, learning video editing by just watching videos. Something where I wasted a month, 2 months, trying to learn it and trying to sit through everything versus like jumping around and just playing with it myself and then going back to it and learning, hey, I'm doing this for a reason. This is how I learn. Why don't I apply it after? So it all starts with what's important to you, those core values that shape the way you're going to be able to stack your wins. You're going to be able to look at it and say, hey, yes, may have not been the best in the past, but I can be better in the future. And this is how I do it, because these are my fundamental principles that I lean every decision off of.
Yeah. So getting in touch with your core values, and that gives you that solid foundation that drives everything else around that.
Absolutely.
You're helping people through the Winners Paradigm podcast. You're also helping podcasters themselves quite a bit, because I realize I've been doing this for 18 months now, and hopefully coming up to 100 episodes in the next couple of weeks. And when I think back on a lot of those episodes, including this one, they can be anything from half an hour to an hour and a half. Some of them are like 2.5, 3 hours long. The amount of teaching points within each of those conversations that covers a different range of subjects that I then think could be broken down, cut up, split up, to then be redistributed in a shorter form as content, whether it's articles or short videos or, I don't know, Instagram stuff. I'm still trying to figure all this stuff out. But there's a big challenge in actually doing all of that. But you're assisting podcasters with all of that type of repurposing content, aren't you?
Yes, sir. And that's because, Again, I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm a podcaster. Like I said, I take care of the little one, so that's my thing. So something for me is flexibility, but also to be able to learn who specifically am I helping. Again, even like the helping people on the mindset thing. That's just talking to my older self and just going through basically the guidance that I wish I would have had. So in this case, what is us as podcasters, wish we would have or wouldn't have? We need something that's going to make our time better. So that's where the video editing service comes in. And like you said, we can chop it up into categories, go further in depth in there, get you something for every day of the month. So you can be able to have 15, 30-second short form content to be able to share out that's going to be authentic to you, specifically made to say, hey, this is us, and just really talk about whatever it is you like covering. So for me, my goal is just working with podcasters that really just talk about the impact side of the house, but give the steps, whether it's like the motivational messages every day or flips back to their speakers, or maybe just them speaking because they're boosting their brand, whatever it is. So for me, it's really figuring out for you what's important and how you're going to be able to make that happen.
Yeah. So what's the perfect kind of client avatar? I think you touched on it there. So it's podcasters who are in that kind of impact sort of space.
Yeah. So if you're a podcaster, entrepreneur who's, into self-help, the self-improvement. So that's, if you have a podcast, whatever it is, whatever you're looking to do, to get yourself out there. Specifically, it's going to be people who are putting time and effort into that, but it just allows you, even just your podcast episodes, because I know that's something for me. I would do the audiograms. And when I did it, I heard one of my friends say, yeah, when I hear the audiograms, I just scroll past it. Like, I just don't want to look at it like it's not a video. And I was like, okay,
Oh,
cool.
wow.
So I started videos, and they got better. And then I start seeing the numbers, of them going up, people looking at it. But also, like, we have to think about like so yes, one part of the element is us, and then it's the market, right? So we got to look at all these other videos or whatever. Specifically, what they're pertaining to is somebody's expertise about something. So it's going to be like, oh, they keep talking about business, or they keep talking about health, or maybe whatever it is goes back to this. So really figuring out for that podcaster, for that entrepreneur, like, hey, what's your goal? Okay, your fitness. All right, well, let's tailor everything down here. Maybe you can talk about whatever, or maybe we're talking about motivational messages. For me, it's all about mindset, or really just putting out new thoughts. Sometimes it is what I believe in. Sometimes it's not particularly to stick one way, but that way we can be able to inspire, kind of let people know, hey, your mindset all starts with you. It's not fun. For me, I have really bad joint problems, knees, elbows, shoulders, hips. Yeah, so not feeling good a lot of mornings. So usually I get up at 3 a.m. to go work out. Other days I get up at 5:30. The difference is I have 2 different morning routines that allows me to get through that. So I can kind of speak to that person who may be struggling with that, because that's where I was struggling, was like waking up this late or not doing it, versus now it's like, okay, I get up at 3, I go to the gym. If not, I can do kettlebell workout later on in the day for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, just keep high intensity, and then that qualifies. So figuring out for you, like, how are you going to be able to make it happen? What's going to work for you? For me, like I said, I have a lot of problems with my body, so I got to keep things moving. I got to figure out what we can do. And really, that's where you can funnel that in your content, make it as easy. So we'll do it for you. And then all you do is just post it on your page, talk about whatever. But definitely from the creativity as well as the time standpoint, that's where you get the bang for your buck, is you get more, and then you can still increase numbers in social media, if you have people that follow you, or even if you're building it up. So it works out perfectly both ways.
Yeah. Where's the win accumulation factor for content creators? So since we're both podcasters, let's talk about podcasting, because I just took the dust covers off the YouTube channel that I have never used for, like, I don't know when I started it, like 6 years ago. But like 2 weekends ago, I took the dust covers off, and the only video content I've got to post up there are the Zoom recordings from the podcast. So I just put the first few up, and then and then it was through the process of editing those videos, I suddenly realized that like an hour's video I could probably cut up into 5-minute or even shorter chunks, and just have so many little pieces of content to put out there. And then I was interviewing someone the other day who said to me, partly because Google owns YouTube, but video is kind of like the search algorithm's priority. So by putting our podcast video out onto YouTube with the right kind of tags and whatever, it's actually a good thing to do, because we will get more, the light will shine more on your show if you're doing the video as well as putting it out on all the usual podcast platforms. I mean, he was saying that people will find your podcast on YouTube before they'll find it on iTunes or Spotify or wherever. Is that something that you're finding for the clients that you're working with?
Yes, so that's something I'm learning for myself as well, where I'm working on my own YouTube. And what's funny is I didn't, and then I was doing it for clients, and it was the same thing. You want to get yourself as many things as possible, and that's where I was thinking about YouTube. Is I don't personally use YouTube a lot, so it was just thinking about that. And then they're like, but it's not about you; it's about other people who put it on while they are cooking or doing whatever. Like, you got to think about all these different avenues where we can be able to reach out to people and speak on that. And that's where it really goes in. Perfect example of breaking up that, 20-minute episode into 5 little bits or whatever it is, 15, 20-second clips. The YouTube shorts are amazing because it just allows people to be able to see it. And then I know I do it because I analyze my behavior. I'll be on TikTok, and then I start looking at a video, and then all of a sudden I'm watching all their videos or watching the Family Guy videos, because it piques my interest. So that's where you can be able to help yourself, is get yourself known, put multiple things of content there. I think that's what it is like one of the viral things is the video element. So being able to put your content there as your podcast and talk about whatever brings it back to you, because then somebody may be interested in everything you talk about, but they're seeing it from this video because they don't listen to podcasts traditionally.
Yeah, because people consume content in different ways. I mean, I'm now actually starting to spin off from the audio, which it has been for the last 18 months, coming up to 2 years. It'll be in February, March. So now obviously we've got the YouTube channel. So I'm trying to add videos there. So when they go up as audio, they go out of video, and then also transcribe those episodes as well. So that I've then got the text to then chop up into different articles to then push out onto different sources. And it's funny, you just never know when a piece of content is going to resonate with someone and how they're going to find it. So I totally get your point there, that the more places you've put your content out, the more likely it is the people you want to help are going to find it.
Absolutely. And again, we got to think about kind of where we're at and what we did when we were coming, so really looking at every single element there, and then also adding them social media, really responding back to people and just building it up, as well as showing hey, that you are here to help, whatever it is. And I feel like that's a lot of what it is we may think that way, but then we lose focus, later on or whatever it is. Again, it's just what's important to you and then taking action on that.
Yeah, and that's, again, talking about accumulating wins. Another example of that is when, you can get kind of quite tired, either because you're not feeling that your show's getting enough traction at various times, or certain episodes maybe didn't hit, or you've done so much preparation for a guest and then you're sitting there waiting for them to come onto the call and then they don't appear, and then you email them and then half an hour later they're like, oh, hey, sorry, I forgot. And you're like, okay, great. All these things that deflate you. But then where you get the wins is, I had a really lovely message on one of the YouTube videos from someone who was really struggling with some of the things that we were talking about. And that really helped him. And then I've had some wonderful letters and emails as well through the audio side of the podcast from the, Spotify and Apple Podcasts and that sort of thing. And when you get that type of feedback, or even when you're just talking to people, and they come up to you and they're like, hey, I listened to the latest episode of your thing, and that was really, really good. It actually helped me with something that I'm dealing with now. It's those wins, we'll call them, that really give you the energy and fuel that fire to keep going. And that's why the other thing that you just talked about, which is when you do get people interacting with you, you've got to get them involved in the game. You've got to engage with them, thank them, show your appreciation, and ask them if there's anything else you can do to help them with the content that you're creating, which I'm really, really trying to get much better at being in the habit of doing.
Yeah, and it all starts. I'll make it easy. Like for me, I started with it this year is making it easy. It's just one thing a day,
Yeah.
just to be able to do it because it's something for me where on weekends I will not post. I'm just like vigilant of my time. I want to spend it with family, and I don't even think about that, you know. So I was just like, all right, every day I'm going to do one post. And for instance, I don't do it batch recordings or anything crazy like that anymore. So I'll just do one video. And then the weekend, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do one of me talking or whatever it is. So it just allows you to be able to build that surplus so you can always have something to post. Because that's where it is, you know, is we have to be able to be consistent. We have to show people that we're on time. We're doing what we need to do. One way is just doing that. And it could start with just you doing it ahead. One day you have 20 extra minutes. Hey, let me do one thing, or let me get somebody to do this for me so I can make back my time. And now I can focus my areas and whatever it is. So all goes back to you in kind of how are you going to use your own system the best you can.
Yeah. That's how winning's done. I love that. Yeah, no, I really, really love that. Listen, I'm conscious of time for you, and obviously you've got your beautiful, gorgeous little girl there in the background, who's probably demanding daddy's attention. So people listening can find the Winners Paradigm podcast wherever they get their shows, but also you can go to thewinnersparadigm.com. Where else can people find you and connect with you online, Alundas?
Social media is going to be Alundas_Havens.
Okay.
And then thewinnersparadigm.com. Best way.
Awesome. And then if you do go to thewinnersparadigm.com, not only will you find this wonderful man, but you'll also be able to contact him there. And then if you want to work with him, if any of my podcast community that are listening or content creation community that are listening, you can fill out a questionnaire there and set up a call, and Alundas will be able to work out how he might be able to help you. My friend, have you had fun today?
It was amazing talking with you, so I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you so much. This won't be the last time. And thank you all so much for joining Alundas and I today. Hit the share button to send this podcast on to someone you know who could benefit from the things that we discussed on this episode. You can find us on Instagram at Tailoring Talk Podcast for updates on new episodes. And you know I love feedback, so email me at tailoringtalkpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to support the show further, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Roberto Revilla. Have a great week. Be good to each other. And I'll see you Tailoring Talkers on the next one.